What's going on, everybody? It's Divots and Pivots. I'm Andrew Leduc, aka Mr. Mallard. And yes, Bud Copeland at this Buds for You, Chief of Morale, is back with the crack of what looks like an Arnold Palmer right there. Still the best deal you will find in any store of any product across the world. I still swear by it. What, 22 ounces for 99 cents? I don't care what you say. That is the best deal you can find. Yes, we're jumping right into it. We are still dealing with the goddamn copyright issues that keep plaguing our intro songs. We're gonna get you something original because we're two musical geniuses. We're gonna figure that out for you. So bear with us there. But welcome to the show, everybody. Bud, I'm so glad to have you back. Keith was fantastic filling. If you didn't catch that episode last week, catch it. Keith is we'll have him back on the show again. It's already his second appearance. But we love having Keith, so you'll see Keith here again for sure. But Bud, welcome in. I see you did pour the Arnold Palmer. How is that treating you tonight?
Well, a couple things real quick. Good to be back. Thanks for holding down the fort. Shout out Keith Fleming for stepping in. If you don't follow him, go follow him at Keith Fleming. Phenomenal guy, great insight, solid sense of humor. Really, if you've ever seen the movie The Internship,
yeah.
Have you seen it? Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson.
Yes.
Phenomenal
film. It's a very underrated, just a nice, easy watch.
Incredibly easy watch. The Quidditch scene's my favorite when the golden snitch comes out and who the fuck is this now? But when they're culling through the intern applicants and they get down and they've got Tweedledee and Tweedle Dipshit up against some valedictorians with a bunch of whatever degrees, and they had to splice some hairs. They go to the who would you rather be seated next to on a plane on a long flight. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of how they decipher if you're worth talking to or if you're just kind of a dipshit and, we're going to move on. I think that you could almost say that about golf. If you could play 9 holes or 18 holes of golf with somebody, they're all right. If you can't, then, next. I got nothing for you. Keith is absolutely solidly in the, I got a spot in my foursome for Keith anytime. So thanks for holding down the fort in case you missed it. My dad passed. There was about year-long process, folks. If you've been through it, you know what it is. If you haven't, nothing can prepare you for it. It's almost like having a kid where mentally you can always gear up no matter how much time you're given with a child. It's usually around 9 months or a little less because, you're not sure at first. Losing a loved one sucks. It's a big old shit sandwich, but we've got a great community around us. Especially a lot of my golf buddies reached out. A lot of folks through social media reached out. So I appreciate it. We're doing good. Having a long time helped prepare, but we landed the flight and now it's on to what's next. That's exactly what my folks would want to do. It's like, all right, we've dealt with that. So what's next? And what's next for us is the Memorial this week, followed by the US Open next week. It is an incredible stretch of golf for us fans, but it doesn't necessarily make Papa Bear happy. And we're going to get into this a little bit later with Jack Nicklaus and some of the kind of comments, and we're going to read between the lines and check the tea leaves. But we're in the thick of it, man. We're in the thick of golf season. It's the best time of year personally for me because the Masters has its own little standalone show. So does the Players, but the Open Championship, the US Open, on into the playoffs, that this is where it's just bam, 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 back to back. And so I don't know, morale is high, considering all things considered, morale is high. And I'll tell you why in a little bit too, because we'll get a quick preview of Boudreaux's trip to Pinehurst coming up next week. So opening thoughts are morale is high. I am grateful. You all are wonderful human beings, and golf is a phenomenal game. We got to figure out this lighting because
what's going on with you two? You're usually the one that's got the better lighting.
I look like I'm auditioning for I got
blue dabba dee dabba die.
There it is. That's even worse.
Yeah,
this is bad. I look like I'm auditioning for a Twilight sequel. We'll go with that.
Twilight sequel.
Yeah, it's gonna be based in the South.
Real fast too, my quick opening thought before because here's the thing, we are gonna obviously talk the Memorial in the second half of the show, but there's a ton of golf news to get to this week. But my quick opening thought, just because I know our audience, I know what I'm passionate about. It is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, so keep that in mind. Obviously, what happened with Grayson Meyer, we talked about that last week. We're not gonna get into that crazy again. But it's just a reminder of what's at stake here. We're going to get to a little bit, but we're not, go crazy with it. But it's just a reminder of what's at stake here. Everyone's got their own shit going on. You don't know what anybody else is doing. Just keep that in mind when you're reacting to people and the way you talk to people. We all have our own journey. including yourself. Don't discount yourself. Just because you think of others doesn't mean you can't take care of yourself too. There's always someone to listen. You can reach out to any of us. Hell, me or Bud will listen to you. You can be a complete stranger. You just want to vent, email us. The email, I actually don't have it up right now, but email us. We'll be there to just
creative.
let you
Divots
vent.
and pivots at Gmail.
It's a real outlier there. But we want to be supportive of the men's mental health community. So keep that in mind. It's an important month. But let's get back to the golf. Because what direction do you want to go in first? Because I feel like no matter what direction we go in, we could easily spend 40 minutes on. It's tough to decide.
We're not going to do that because mostly our audience, as much as they love us, they don't have that attention span, and neither do I, quite frankly. I want to start. I want to start with the USO, not the US Open, US Open qualifying. Yesterday was golf's longest day, and for me, I got a buddy. Shout out Laz. It's he's entering his final summer of summer camp life. Look at this, 6:15 in, first summer camp reference.
It's been like 3 episodes, by the way, that you've been on.
I had a lot on my mind recently, but Laz basically treats certain days of the year. He's a huge fan of college football, and when I say fan, in a way where, you know how we're hanging out sometimes and something will happen and I'll pull out some mundane fucking stat you're like, why do you know that? Why is that even in your brain? Or I'll say something and then 30 seconds later, the announcer will kind of say something similar, like cite the same stat.
Dude, that happens to me with football all the fucking time.
And I got that and that happens with Laz. Like you're sitting there and, something will happen. He'll be like, oh, that kid went to junior college in Pensacola, Florida. His parents are preachers. And you're like, what? And then sure enough, there's Gary Danielson. That's what you get from a preacher's kid from Pensacola, Gary. What the fuck is going on here?
Yeah, I love that.
So I don't even know how we got to Laz. Laz and his
it's your fucking journey, man. Your journey.
So the way he treats like the college signing day, or even the NFL draft, the combine, those kind of like special one-off days. That's how I feel about Monday of the U.S. Open, the week before the U.S. Open, the golf's longest day. The way they've got this thing structured is dope. There's upwards of 10,000 people. Anybody with, I want to say it's a 2 handicap or better can, I got a little Fred Astaire thing going on with my putter here. I'm doing a bunch of cane work. Anybody with like a 2 handicap or better can try for the U.S. Open. I mean, in theory, I could go out there and try to play in one of these qualifiers, but the level of competition is just different. And so they whittle these 10,000 people down over the course of a couple of months into these fields of 650 golfers, 10 locations. It's not 65 exactly each, but it shakes out to roughly 2 to 4 or 5 spots per location up for grabs. And they play 36 holes in one day. I mean, it's a true old school kind of how they used to, and it's how they used to do it. And so I think it's great. It's great content. You do get sun up to sundown. Last night I fell asleep on the couch while they were still finishing things up out west. So it's one of the cooler days because U.S. Open, if you've ever seen Tin Cup too, that's why the U.S. Open was a perfect tournament for it, because the way he explains it is brilliant, and it's open. Anybody can play it. All you have to have is a handicap, and it has to be at a certain level, and then away you go. So it is the People's Open. It is our championship. It is arguably one of the most coveted majors. People put this up there against the Masters. Which one would you rather win is a common conversation you might hear. And it depends on, I think, where golf lives in your personal life as to which one you'd rather win. I think the U.S. Open might be a tougher overall test. But the gravitas that comes along with that green jacket can't be matched, even with a giant trophy such as the U.S. Open. I'm struggling. The Wanamaker is for the PGA. What is the name of the U.S. Open trophy?
You're asking the wrong person. I'm not the golf. I'm not the golf fact guy wizard. Well, now hold on. Now I got a U.S. Open. This is a bad look for a fucking golf show, I can tell you.
Are you fucking kidding me? Listen, do you know how many stupid, absolutely mundane details there are in our sport? It's not dumb at all.
You know why? You want to know why?
Why? It's the U.S. Open trophy?
It was never named.
Yeah, it's the U.S. Open trophy.
Because we had the Claret Jug for the Open. We had the Wanamaker for the PGA Championship. The U.S. Open trophy was never named.
Good. I don't feel like such an idiot.
I don't feel dumb either anymore.
Well, for other reasons. So,
well, fair.
But yesterday is honestly so they have these 10 different sites, and you see pros out there against some amateurs, but more often than not, this is where those guys who are not exempt go and they try to earn their
Yes.
way in. A couple of things that jumped out to me: our boy Frankie Sappin, the third from earlier this year, who shot 58 on the Corn Ferry Tour. He qualified yesterday, and if the name sounds familiar, it's because Pinehurst is where he won the 2017 USGA 4-ball. So that's kind of a cool story to keep an eye on there. He's already won once back at Pinehurst. It'll be cool to go back there as a champion, so to speak, and see his name on the wall, because they have kind of a spot for all the big tournaments and all the big champions that have been contested there. And then also you talk about Pinehurst is now the World Golf Hall of Fame home headquarters, so they're going to do whatever. That was one cool thing. Harry Higgs, your boy Harry Higgs.
Hell yes, Harry Higgs, star of the freaking year right now.
Back to back on the Corn Ferry Tour. He's bouncing back. He's on his comeback tour. And the Higgs train is rolling through Pinehurst. He qualified in a playoff, no less. I mean,
he'll be on tour by the end of the year. He's going to get that third win.
I think so. I think he's going to get that third win.
Yeah.
I think he's going to get back on tour. I even go as far to say, look out, dark horse Harry Higgs, top 10 finish. I don't think he's going to win.
Well, here's the thing. When you're playing good, sometimes you're just playing good. And you're coming off of 2 wins in a month, like, God, that's sometimes all you need.
All you need is an Arnie Palmer. By the way, this is not a true Arnold Palmer. This is a half and half. True Arnold Palmer has a little different mixture. I think it's a little heavier on the lemonade or whatever. But anyways, back to Harry Higgs. Yeah, I say you look out for Harry, because you're exactly right, and that's where I was going with this. Is if you're playing good golf, you're playing good golf.
Yeah.
And so catching lightning in a bottle, there are hundreds of guys who are plus handicaps like this, who are tour caliber players, who the stars just have to align. The cream usually rises to the top. But Harry Higgs, it's also that kind of like, wait a minute, I used to be on tour. I've been humbled. I've accepted it. Wait a minute, I won again. Fuck, I'm invincible. Oh my God, here I'm back in the U.S. Open. So look out for Harry Higgs. And then last but certainly not least, if you do say prayers to the golf gods, not real prayers, guys. If you say prayers to the golf gods, send some out for Adam Scott, because we're
beat me to it.
We're on major watch for Adam Scott.
Yeah,
91 consecutive majors going back 20 some odd years.
I have it right in front of me. 23-year streak he has going right now, and he lost in the U.S. Open qualifier playoff to fellow Australian Cam Davis.
Not only did he lose, he bogeyed like 3 of the last 5 coming down the stretch.
He fucking choked it away.
But he almost won it. He holed out for birdie off the green, and then Cam Davis dunks a birdie putt on top of it and takes it away from him. And then Matt Kuchar. Matt Kuchar's going back to Pinehurst, I believe, and he's going to be one of the only players to have played. I think him and T. Gray, once Tiger officially tees it up, are going to be the only players to have played in all the Pinehurst U.S. Opens. We talk about this rich history, but Pinehurst didn't start hosting these U.S. Opens until 99. Yep. And then now it's an anchor site that, remember, we're going to be back here probably every 5-6 years. Boudreaux is going to be there.
As we should be.
Next week. And what do we got here? So we're still on the U.S. Open, the U.S. Open qualifier. I'm going to roll right into real quick my itinerary for next week.
Might as well. Yeah, because I can't wait, because I know you have plans to drop some content while you're there. We're going to be talking to you. We're going to see what's happening live, boots on the ground.
Right. We will have boots on the ground next week in Pinehurst. I fly into, who's calling me? Don't call here. Fly into Charlotte next Monday, and my buddy Christian's picking me up. He lives in Asheville, and I think he's driving his hippie van. He literally has like a VW bus.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we'll see.
That's the way you should show up to the U.S. Open, right? That has everything about, like, I'm a grinder golfer who scratched his way into this field, and I'm gonna sleep in my van for the weekend and play this fucking tournament. I love that.
It does have a little Field of Dreams vibe to it. I'm pretty sure VW van's what they were driving. Yeah, okay, fine. I'll stop being so curmudgeon-y about it. But Monday afternoon, we're playing Tot Hill Farms, which is the same designer, Mike Strantz, who did Tobacco Road. Tuesday, we're going to the U.S. Open for a practice round. And then Wednesday in the morning, we're playing, I want to say it's Longleaf. It's just another one of the dozen, incredibly high caliber courses in the Pinehurst area. And then Wednesday afternoon/evening, this is my favorite part. We have like a 3:50 tee time at Tobacco Road. So we're going to be, 18th green, sun setting, there's going to be people everywhere because it's US Open weeks, and it's the night before the first round. So we're excited about that. Then Thursday, we're going to round 1. And then Friday, we will find an 18. I don't know where it's going to be, but he texted me and
something.
said, well, I mean, we already have 54 under the belt, and we all know 54 holes is not a real golf tournament. So we're going to have to play 18 more before I fly back Friday afternoon. So if you're going to be down in Pinehurst, holler at your boy, hit me up in the DMs at This Bud's For You, or you can just send us a message, follow us at Divots and Pivots on any of your social channels. Really, YouTube, Instagram, or Twitter. If you come anywhere else, we might find it eventually, but those are the big three.
Yeah, and if you head over to YouTube
and the TikToks, apologies.
The TikTok we're having some success on. So
your morning wood is reason enough to get on TikTok.
Hey, my morning wood's the reason enough for a lot of things. But when it comes to YouTube, yes, go check out because what you're seeing here, we do have the show weekly on That Sports Podcast Network. But our own channel, we're trying to revive. We're going to get that back up. Get over to the Divots and Pivots YouTube channel, subscribe, like, follow, whatever you got to do on all our socials. We would definitely appreciate that. And speaking of the U.S. Open, because we are going to stay on the U.S. Open here for a second, but a little bit of a different U.S. Open because we just had the LPGA's U.S. Open this past weekend. Yuka Saso comes out and wins not her first U.S. Open, but her second, the now youngest to win 2 major championships, or at least 2 U.S. Opens. I actually might have that wrong. Is it 2 U.S. Opens or 2 major championships? Shit.
I believe it's 2 U.S. Opens, but
it's U.S. Opens. Okay. Either way, it's impressive.
Yeah, it's overwhelmingly impressive.
Especially in the days that we've been talking about Nelly Korda for like 3 months now, just owning golf. And then we have a side story here that just becomes the main quest. If you're a video game player, like all of a sudden we have a whole new different direction here, and fantastic story this weekend for the LPGA.
And I'm glad you mentioned Nelly because, obviously she missed the cut. Everybody's talking about that 10. She had fun with it as well with her social media referencing 10. This is what happens though. We got spoiled with Tiger in the women's game. They got spoiled with Annika, and I think they were kind of hoping that this was happening again. Not saying that it's not. It's Charlie Hull had a bigger week for smoking a cigarette, and she looked hot doing it. But she had a week than Nelly did. But Nelly, we'll see what happens moving forward. If Nelly comes back next week and either wins or does a top 5, top 10, fine. If she doesn't, maybe that was it. All these stars burn so bright, so hot, so fast sometimes that then it's just out. We saw it with kind of Jordan Spieth. He came out the gates, wins 3 majors in 2.5 years, and it's just going crazy. And we blink, that was 12 years ago. It's like these things do happen. And I say that because look out. I'm keeping him in my emergency 9 because you can't deny him right now. But Scotty shaved his beard. And there's
I love it. I love this type of analysis. This is right up my alley.
We'll circle back to this when we get to the Memorial later. But my point is, if these stars these streaks end and they fall off, what we saw with Tiger, something else to keep an eye on with Xander Schauffele. Apparently he's got a cut streak going right now that is 90 some odd tournaments long, and somebody pointed out he's got to keep it going for another couple years without missing a cut to touch Tiger's mark of 142.
It's like more than a couple of years. It's like an absurd amount of time.
Yeah, because they only play a dozen or 14 tournaments a year, and so do the math. So the U.S. Women's Open was definitely eye-opening. There were a lot of notables who missed the cut, Nelly included. Rose Zhang, O2 barbecue there. Old Little League days.
I love it.
O2 barbecue, baby. They lost twice. They had to go home. The Lancaster Country Club was kind of cool to see that venue. What I'm excited for though with the Women's U.S. Open are future venues coming up because this was the biggest purse in U.S. Women's Open history. Ergo the biggest purse in women's golf tournament history, most likely. Don't quote me on that. But future sites, what they've got coming, they've got Pebble on the horizon. Where is it at right here? Okay, so listen to what we got on deck for the U.S. Women's Open. And this is kind of cool because there's a parallel story going on right now with women's basketball. And not just
I was going to make the same parallel. I'm so glad you brought it up.
And not even just with the Caitlin Clark, Kennedy, whatever her name is, hip check, Angel Reese, look at me drama. That's been there.
I know.
It's also that I think the NBA is out over their skis with how long they've been drawing out these fucking playoffs. You know,
Yeah.
us Boston fans were pumped, we're hyped, but I almost forgot that we were in the finals until Dan Patrick was talking about it, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, so it starts on Thursday. The NBA Finals could potentially go 2.5 weeks for 7 games.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that they got to go back to the old days of playing back to back and only having one day for road travel. I mean, but maybe just one day in between games is enough to let these people bounce back. I'm
So
sorry,
it's definitely enough.
and so in that kind of vacuum of the NBA, the WNBA is doing a hell of a job of gaining our
Yes.
attention, kind of showing us that there are storylines there beyond just the caliber of basketball when it's held up directly against the men's game. You start seeing much more of a touch, kind of a Caitlin Clark stands out because her touch is just a half step quicker than everybody else's with how quick she gets rid of the ball and moves it around. And so there's excitement brewing for that. I think it's kind of cool there. And then in the women's golf game, you look at it, and US Women's Open is kind of leading the way by getting a title sponsor to increase their purse. And then they're going to end up bringing eyeballs in, and they're going to be ahead of the game when they go to Erin Hills, Riviera, Inverness, Oakmont, Pinehurst number 2,
Yeah.
Interlaken, Oakland Hills, LA Country Club, Chicago Golf Club, Marion, Pebble Beach, and Shinnecock. That
Those are staple courses.
That's a traditional US Open lineup. And
Yeah,
so
and I don't want to say, and I know this is how it's gonna sound. I don't mean it this way,
sure
but no,
don't.
I really don't, because I know this is gonna sound like I'm looking down on the LPGA, because I'm not, because I respect the level of competition that it is. But that lineup of courses right there for the casual fan who might catch an LPGA on randomly at the bar on the Golf Channel or something one day, that lineup legitimizes like what they're providing for from an entertainment product standpoint, because those are courses people know. Like, it's not a US Open that's at some random course that nobody understands. Like, these are names that a casual golf fan is going to recognize, at least a handful of them.
And
That's big. It's a big step forward.
And take it a step further with the men's game, even if you want to start thinking about how can we make these mid to lower tier tournaments a little more relevant, you have to have a star. You have to have a Scotty or a Rory or a Tiger or a Nelly or an Annika or a Rose. That you have to have somebody in that field, preferably a handful, but you definitely have to have whoever is the biggest name in the field. And if you don't, then either the tournament itself, i.e., a major, or but the Memorial, or the course has to be the star worth tuning into. Because the point you're saying is, I could not name a golfer out there, but I'll tune in to watch the Marion course. It's a beautiful layout. We don't.
And
get to
what
see
people recognize about the Marion course is the freaking wicker hot air balloon flags,
right? And
you know what I mean?
That
like
kind of
things like that.
And that's my point, is they'll tune in to see the iconic shit, just like LA Country Club after getting a glimpse of it last year. The arguments, I hear the argument, and I kind of agree with it, that it's definitely not a friendly venue for crowds, 25, 50,000 people a day versus the hundreds of thousands.
What did you expect? It's in the middle of the city. Like,
well, that's the argument. Then you don't have tournaments in places like that unless it's more accessible. But the flip side is,
you just change the way that people take in the tournament. You expand it outside of the golf course. Like, you get creative. I'm sorry, but you're in LA. You can set up some block party viewing parties right outside the course. There's things you could do. Like, come on, these are smart people running the PGA. Let's get creative here. Like, I don't want to see LA Country Club get taken out of the rotation just because it's not great for the fans to watch. Like,
it's not getting taken. Well, it's not part of the rota. It's not. It's
not the main rota. Yeah.
And I don't think that the USGA is going to do what the R-Day has, which is literally just a closed loop of 14, 16, 18 clubs that it rotates around, or is eligible to host, so to speak. We already have that kind of unofficial list. What I'm looking for, what every golf fan wants, is, down the road, Pine Valley, that Uber exclusive kind of, or Seminole, like bring Seminole back. It was really cool when they did the Walker Cup there. It was really cool when they did the content during COVID down there.
Yeah.
That's as the true golf fan, that's kind of what I would want to see. The people want to see the stars, and the masses want to see whoever does well on Good Morning America. That's who you want in your field. I mean, I hate to say it, but if they're going to do well in the morning shows, then that's who you want in the field, because that's the casual fan. I'm tuning in no matter what. I'm a degenerate. it's part of my blood and DNA. I live, eat, breathe golf. I'm just a hashtag golf guy.
Mhm.
So I have to remember that, because when I get all geeked up for the John Deere Classic, no disrespect to the John Deere, it's a
I thought
gateway
we were
to the.
moving on from the John Deere. I thought we were going to something
I'm
else.
explaining to the fans how it's a gateway to the
Oh,
Open
okay.
Championship.
Okay. Sorry.
Um, but yeah, the women's game is trending in the right direction, and a lot of
It
it has
is.
to do with both the move of the Dinah Shore, albeit sad, that move to a bigger, more kind of fan friendly, growth centric location, coupled with the way that the U.S. Women's Open is going. I'm excited for the Solheim Cup. I think we got a Solheim
Mm,
Cup coming up this year, and I think on the heels of how big and accessible the Ryder Cup has become,
yeah.
both just on TV and through full swing, and this kind of shift in focus and attention on the women's game. I mean, I think it's going to be a bigger Solheim Cup than usual. And you have budding stars on both
Mhm.
sides, and you have some bad blood that we'll dig into later on this year
Yes.
when we revisit the Solheim Cup and how things went down the last time around. So,
I,
U.S.
yeah.
Women's Open, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful pivot there. Yuka Saso, it's just gonna be one of those things, is Yuka Saso the next Annika, or is Yuka Saso the next Jordan Spieth? We'll
Yeah.
figure it out.
We'll
Time
figure
will
it
tell.
out. And I think Full Swing did change the Ryder Cup forever, because I think the next time the Ryder Cup comes around, now that it was featured in a Full Swing, watch out. I think we're going to see a massive influx in viewership for the Ryder Cup next time it rolls around. But with that, we're going to see some, especially with it being in the US next time. Geez, there's going to be, I think we're going to get some real hype around it. It's going to be fun. It's going to be trash talk left and right. I'm excited for the next Ryder Cup. I think it's going to be a blast. Not that it wasn't that anyways, but I think now you're just going to pull in even more fans for it.
It,
So I
I
credit
actually,
Full Swing for that.
I actually think the next one might break the Ryder Cup.
Oh,
I'm, I'm
you'll
being
have to
I'm being
save that thought.
I'm being facetious, but I'm saying what you're talking about. First of all, not only is it, yes, the full swing aspect of getting more of the casual viewer, or even just the
Mhm.
people who are like, damn, there's drama here. This
Yeah.
guy's talking shit about that guy and whatever. You get a little bit of that. That's not going to go away, because that's going to feed some of these athletes. They're going to use that and take license to kind of let the chip on their shoulder for 1 week. The quiet guy is going to come out and, start, Justin Rose is going to like be wagging his finger at somebody if he gets back into another one. So you're already going to get that little bit of an edge. B, you're right. It's in the United States. Not only is it in the United States, it's outside of New York City. I mean, it's on Long
Yeah.
Island. Bethpage Black. This is a site that we saw
Talk
with the
about a
Tigers US
location.
Open that is built, constructed for large crowds. It's a state park, for crying out loud. So the crowds are going to be wild. They're going to be big. And then last but certainly not least, I just alluded to him, but we're more than likely going to see a Captain Tiger Woods.
Mhm.
That in and of itself is going to be, not only are we going to see a captain. Nah, it's too late for that. I was gonna float it out there. We're going to see a repeat of his 2019 captaincy when he was a playing captain for the
Sure.
President's Cup when they won down under. But unfortunately, I do think that Tiger is gone about as far as he's gonna go
Yeah.
in realistic competitive,
Mhm.
talk.
I think it's
It's
fair.
But I think everybody holds that in the back of their head, that it wouldn't shock anybody to see him put together 72 holes of excellence one more time, maybe twice.
Sure.
And I've said it, probably going to be at Augusta if it happens, but
Yeah.
maybe, God, I hate to say it's like maybe this week. No, it's
It
not gonna.
won't
It's
it,
not gonna be.
it
It's not
won't
gonna
be
be.
it won't be a US Open. I can guarantee that.
No, as a
It's
fucking
not gonna be
beating
a US
him up.
Open.
He's there on a sponsor's exemption, not a sponsor exemption, a special invite from the U.S. Open anyway, because his 2019
Yes.
Masters exemption ran out. So
Yes. Well, let's get to a bit more of a, I guess you can say, I think it's safe to say it's a fun story. It's unfortunate for one person in this story, but CT Pan turns to a CA fan.
yeah,
Uh, do you like that? I worked on that all fucking day.
Jesus.
Mike CT Pan's caddy, Mike Fluff Cohen, Fluff as they all call him. Obviously, he slipped, fell, hurt himself, and a simple fan in the crowd just simply turned to CT and just said, "Do you need a hand?" The CT Pan said, "Yes, get out here." And all of a sudden, this guy is walking up for the last two holes of the tournament this past week at the RBC Canadian Open, throwing on the vest, and carrying the bag for CT. And I just, it's a quick story. We don't need to spend a ton of time on it, but isn't that just the fucking dream? I'm sorry, but you're just standing there on the rope. Professional golfer walks by, and you just see an opportunity. He's probably just said it jokingly, honestly. He probably never thought he'd actually be out there, and you just say something, and all of a sudden you get taken serious. Like, that's just, I mean, look, all he did was carry the bag in the end. It's not like he was giving him advice out there, but fuck, that'd be great.
Caddies are the most under.
Well, I agree with that, obviously.
In the game.
But I agree with that, but obviously, I agree with that. I'm just saying that's a fucking dream right there, though.
I'm looking at this guy. He has caddy experience in the past. He's not in a pro event, but he did caddy for a friend at a LPGA Pro-Am. There you go.
Oh, I actually didn't see that story, so that's that is a fun little tidbit.
I mean, you are talking to a former caddy on the Corn Ferry Tour.
Then you can legitimately claim that, and you should as many times as you can.
Kidding me? It's on my resume.
Because I love that.
That's a cool story. Shout out Fluff. I hope he's okay. The guy's a million years old. He's been doing this forever. I was super shocked to hear when him and Jim Furyk kind of parted ways, because it's like, Jim was saying, I'm not competing as much as I used to. It's not there.
Yeah.
Like, well, Fluff's, 500 years old. How much more do you want to go? And
I was going to say, yeah. He's legendary status of the caddy circuit.
Jeez. But he kind of said that he's got a daughter. We have an earthquake here. He has a daughter, I think, in college, or maybe a couple kids. And he said when they're done, maybe he's going to be done. But until then, he's just going to keep walking and keep lugging the bag. One of the most iconic shots out there, it's a short, quick video hit, is of Fluff back in the day. People forget Fluff was on the bag for Tiger for the first few years Tiger was out on tour. Mm-hmm. And there's an old shot of Tiger trying to look ahead and looking at the shot, and then you see Fluff take his cigarette and use it to gauge the wind.
Yes,
the more classic. Something about golf and cigarettes. Charlie Hull again ripping a dart because apparently she's trying to quit vaping, and so shit. That's a healthy alternative.
Isn't that a weird world we're in now?
I love it. And then one of the best pictures out there of all time is Ben Hogan and Arnold Palmer, both wearing these like navy blue sweaters, ripping a cig on the tee at Augusta National.
Yeah.
There's something romantic about it. I wish it just didn't smell horrible and taste like a tailpipe, and not in a good way.
That's why I just stick to cigars when I'm on the golf course. But out of also the obviously Canadian heritage, we get Robert McIntyre, someone who was in, I know you weren't here last week, bud, but someone who was in my Emergency 9 last week. Bobby Mack comes in with the big win. Really, front to back, he just kind of really controlled his destiny here this week. I love that. Rory was obviously the big favorite because of his history here. He's dominated this tournament in the past. He had the one bad day, but other than that, he was flawless. He just had the one bad round in the second round. So, but Robert McIntyre, a big win for him. I know it's only the RBC Canadian Open, but he's someone who just recently started getting kind of the fame of the full golf world vision from the Ryder Cup and what he did there. So this is another step forward in the right direction for McIntyre, and I love it. I'm gonna hate him when it comes to Ryder Cup time because he's gonna be on that team again. Let's be honest. But I love it for golf because I think he's just exactly the type of personality, the type of character that golf needs right now. So I'm all in it. Good for Robert.
I don't mind me some Bobby Mack. He really, really, you mentioned Rory McIlroy. I mean, that's when it was last year at the Scottish Open that, Bobby Mack hits I think it was like a 3 hybrid or a 5 wood from 220 to 6 feet, birdies it. He's going to win the Scottish Open in front of his home crowd. And then Rory hits this 2-iron from like 210, and it's the most beautiful shot in the world and just takes the wind out of his sails. But like you said, Bobby Mack goes on, kicks ass at the Ryder Cup. Then he finished the reason he's over here, finished in the top 10 over there in the DP World Tour, kind of that alliance we have where they're going to send the top 10 over and offer them cards. He's over here, and the real story underneath the story is his caddy. Since he came over here, he's been through a couple of caddies, and even going back into finishing up on the DP World Tour, he had been through a couple of caddies and back and forth, and a couple of guys had been with him more than once. And then he missed the cut at the Charles Schwab. So he called his dad, and his dad is a greenskeeper back in Scotland. And he said his dad said he was sitting there Saturday night, got the call, thought, okay, can I really leave my job? I was on a plane the next morning. And then you think about it, a week later, he's standing there rolling up the flag, because he's the caddy. And he's like, I'm not a caddy. I'm not supposed to be here. He goes, I cut grass. Like that Dougie Mack is my hero. I mean, I aspire to be a father who can deliver on that kind of level and trust when, you know, the chips are down, and what do? You pick up the phone and say, hey, Pops, I need some help. So that was you say it was just the Canadian Open. The Canadian Open is sneakily becoming, it's always been a well-respected tournament because it's a national championship. Anything, you know, we think that the US Open is the only one. No, there's the Open Championship, the US Open, obviously the Australian Open, there's the Italian Open, the German Open, the French Open. I mean, if it's a major golfing country, they have a national open. Obviously, there's different tiers to it. So but the Canadian Open is gaining a little steam with the Nick Taylor story last year, the Robert McIntyre thing this year. I say look for it to be on the short list of signature events or elevated events, whatever, next year when they reshuffle things.
Especially with its scheduling, right? You know, fairly close to the US Open. We've seen how the PGA is looking to sandwich these signature events. I could definitely see it falling into they just give a week in between and let the Memorial speak for itself in the future.
Oh, for sure. Well, I'm glad you brought up the Memorial. You want to do we owe any breaks? Let's toss a break in there. We'll come back. We'll go full hog into the Memorial.
Fantasy Sports Corp and Underdog Fantasy have teamed up to start your fantasy season off in the win column with Best Ball. What is Best Ball? It's quite simply the easiest way.
Flawless.
I fucking clicked the wrong thing. I tried to get rid of the Bob Mack wins RBC banner. I clicked the wrong thing.
If you're not doing Underdog Fantasy, check them out. They do snake drafts. They do a lot of different styles of competition. You're most likely traditionally going with the DK or the Fan Duel, but I say give Underdog a quick look, because they have some creative options, and they do some like round by round shit where you're not just locked in, and if your golfer shoots 100 on the first day, you're out of it. So shout out to Underdog for the support. Now, the Memorial.
And real fast, let's be honest with Underdog too. Football season is coming. Training, you know, we got the rookie camps have started for football, and guess what? You can already do now on Underdog. You can already start drafting best ball drafts for this upcoming season. So get in there.
Front door.
Underdog Fantasy for best ball drafts is a fantastic site for best ball. It's super easy. It's quick. And it's very accessible. So get over there, Underdog Fantasy. Use DivPiv, DIVPIV, as the discount code with your first deposit, and have some fun. Underdog's the place to be. But get into the Memorial. What were you going to say? I'm sorry to cut you off there. I want to get football.
No,
I got to get football in there.
Well, you're the football guy. I get it. You mentioned the schedule and how maybe the Canadian Open, you know, moves around or whatever, but that's actually that was a little kind of subtle point of contention for Papa Bear Nicholas there at the Memorial, because his tournament is traditionally a week later. I mean, it's in the fucking name, Memorial. It used to be, it used to start. It used to start the week of Memorial Day, like Memorial Day Monday was the first day of the tournament. They would have huge people out there for practice rounds. He said this year they might have had 1,000 people. That's sad for a tournament like the Memorial, and not just from a revenue standpoint, but from a, you know, gravitas. And are we just going to be are we turning into another pawn of the PGA Tour? So Jack did make it known that he'd like his old spot back soon. He said he did this as a favor to the tour. They wanted to have signature events kind of sandwiching the US Open, because and to let, you know, so they're going Memorial, US Open Pinehurst, and then up here to our neck of the woods for the Travelers. Unfortunately, can't make it down to the Travelers. Got a mass amateur qualifier that weekend, so we'll see how things go, but we'll definitely have our finger on the pulse.
Maybe I'll take a day trip down there, and I won't be able to go to the tournament, but maybe I'll venture into some local bars around the course and see what I can find for people.
You'd be shocked how accessible and cheap just a regular PGA Tour event is to attend. I think if you wanted to go, you'd find tickets pretty easily. But it also would be interesting to get a feel for the town, just to see how much, if it's impacting, because, you know, like Augusta National or anytime a major comes to town, it just, everything is around it. Like the Louisville airport, everything was all PGA Championship, just all over the damn place.
Yeah, I mean, even whenever a golf tournament it comes down. Even the police department changes their fucking ethics. So I mean, who knows? Whatever.
Hey, look at that, Scotty Scheffler. All charges dropped. Everybody's going on with life. Scotty did say he was ready to sue until they dropped the charges. Of course he would
Well,
be.
the video that came out 2 weeks ago now was pretty damning against what was written up in the police report because it completely contradicted the police report. So, but we won't do that again.
Yeah, it's pretty simple here. It dragged on way too long. What he did say though was like that mugshot though is going to live on. That's kind of one thing you mentioned.
And you know, it should let it fucking live on. It's great. Embrace it.
It's great for you and me. For him, it's awful. He's a good guy, and he's a good guy,
yeah,
and now he's got this mugshot out there forever. And it's like, that's the point. He
was even laughing when people put it on T-shirts like the next day at the course. Like he was even laughing at it though.
But you have to in the moment. Now the dust is settled, and the reality's out there for the rest of his life. He's done absolutely nothing wrong.
Yeah. Fair.
And how old is it going to fucking be when everybody keeps walking up with pictures of his mugshot where it's like, okay,
yeah, I guess you're right.
Okay. I mean that's where my brain goes when people. Well, you know, No, I go back to whoever was the kind of not even the arresting officer, whoever was in charge on the site. And we walked by the mobile police like outfit, like the little outpost that was right there.
Yep.
Whoever's in charge, get on the site, make a smarter decision, go about your business. And this guy doesn't have to go through like, because I do, and I'm not you, but I do take umbrage with anybody who goes like, he was let off, he made his tea time. This guy was on track to do something historic, and if you look at his level of play that week, there was one blip on the radar, and it just so happened to be the day after. Well, the day of, your adrenaline is still fucking running.
Yeah, he was so zeroed in on just trying to do whatever he could to stay in routine. It makes sense that he did all right that day. Honestly, I agree with you 100%.
All it took was Ted Scott to say the magic word, and all of that that was pumping, that was already there, just got rechanneled into, all right, let's go to work.
And the second he had to sleep on it and think about it, with downtime, because he didn't have any downtime that morning. That was the thing. He was going. But the second, like any other person, once again, it's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. You get downtime, you let your thoughts get in your head. Sometimes they're not always good. And it got to him.
So anyways, the memorial, Jack wants it back in its traditional spot.
Yes.
I think they're going to give it to him next year. They'll find a way to make it work. But it is a big deal. You mentioned Rory McIlroy last week. Ironically enough, similar scenario where his big fuck up round was the second round, and he even admittedly was hungover for round one. He goes out and shoots 4 under.
He said that.
Yes, he was banged. It was his caddy's birthday, and he said he had a couple too many glasses of wine with all hairy.
Good for him. That's the type of relationship I want to hear when someone like Rory McIlroy going into a couple weeks later a major. I want to hear him having that type of relationship with his caddy.
Well, apparently he's having that type of relationship with Amanda Balionis, but that's not confirmed yet.
So we're not going to get into that tonight, but I've heard that too. So
that's the one blip on the radar for him. This is a big week for him. This is another one of those tournaments he doesn't have it. He hasn't won one. Yeah. And you talk about the tournaments that people want. They want that handshake from Jack Nicklaus. They want the milkshake to taste a little sweeter. Tiger won this thing 5 times. And then after that, you only have a handful of folks who've won it twice. And that list is pretty, and as far as recently is concerned, Patrick Cantlay is the only one that really has won it twice. Outside of that, you got to go pretty far back. So it's tough to win here. Victor Hovland even said it. This place is going to kick you in the teeth. It's going to slap you around. The course doesn't care, who you are, or if you won last year or not. So it's almost, I say you put a little bit of emphasis on some past winners, because even though it's hard to repeat, the course familiarity and that level of confidence obviously can be a difference maker when it comes into finishing the top 10 or even just making a cut, because although this is a signature event, this is one of the few that does have a cut. They're going to cut it to the top 50 in ties, I believe, after 36 holes.
It's a small cut, but it's a cut.
The first cut's the deepest.
Okay, jeez.
And then last but certainly not least, the story of Muirfield Village and Jack Nicklaus is pretty dope. I won't go into the full thing. And if you follow me at this buds for you FORE on Instagram, I can kind of pack a lot into a little here. So he grew up in the area around Dayton, and his dad ran a chain of drugstores, basically like pharmacies. And that's actually what Jack was going to school for at Ohio State. He was preparing to kind of go into the family business. Golf, he just happened to be a way to go to school. And then he happened to be good at it. The rest is history. Well, he bought some land real early, and he started clearing it, and he named it Muirfield Village because the first Open Championship he won was at Muirfield over in over across the pond. And so he's built this thing up. He was very intentional about wanting to be an invitational, wanting to be charitable, wanting to kind of develop something that has gravitas, and he's gotten it to that level. So I do think it would be a shame if all of a sudden it becomes pushed around in the schedule. And I think maybe if anything, the U.S. Open is always going to be Father's Day Sunday, and then you got the Memorial. Build it around those two. We can kind of reverse engineer this thing. But when you build your lineups this week, I would say lean on familiarity, lean on current form, and then lean on whatever formula you use. Mine stays pretty standard because, I mean, what are we doing here? It's strokes gained putting, strokes gained ball striking because it takes approach and off the tee, and then strokes gained tee to green. So there's my own little recipe that generates my list for when I go in emergency 9. However, I know that your key 3 can go anywhere from 3 to 13. So
my
what do you got for us this week as they go into Muirfield in this beast of a course?
Yeah, I more so have a core 3 and then a key 5 is basically what I call it. But this is a par 72. It's just shy of 7,600 yards. So beefy. Definitely a bit of a beefier course. But with the way the holes are laid out on this course, most of your approach shots are actually going to be closer to your 150 to 175 distances. So this is something that off the tee I think is going to be very important because you're going to want to end up in the fairway and long to get in the position here. So approach, putting, off the tee, my standard 3, that's my core 3. And then what I'm mixing in to make it my key 5 here is par 4s 450 to 500, and then my proximity 150 to 175. And that does get me down to what we call here on Divots and Pivots is our emergency 9. That's right. It's the emergency 9 time, and look, I know we have this season long kind of competition going on. We've obviously had a few different things come up where we haven't updated in a while, but I'm thinking maybe
it's still there. The scoreboard's still there. We should
the scoreboard's still there, but exactly the scoreboard's still there. But I think we'll give the masses, the fans, a big update of where we are in the season long standings. Maybe going in next week into the U.S. Open, I think is a good idea. So we'll see if we can get that done for you. But let's get into it. I'll start us off with my emergency 9 based off of my key 5 stats that I just listed. And at number 9, I have Viktor Hovland because I do think it seems like he's turned that corner when it comes to majors. I think he can put 4 solid rounds together. I see a top 10 for him very easily. Number 8, Russell Henley. Number 7, Colin Morikawa. Same kind of idea. I feel like he's kind of killed that demon of major tournaments. So Colin Morikawa, I very much see in the mix here this week. Sepp Straka, number 6. Hideki Matsuyama, number 5. Tom Hoagie, 4. And then my top 3, a star-studded lineup here for my top 3. Ludwig Aubert, number 3. Rory McIlroy, number 2. And then number 1, Scotty Scheffler, because until he proves me otherwise, without having an arrest involved, Scotty Scheffler is going to lead my rankings every week.
You know what? I'm gonna basically just go the inverse. I'm gonna start with number 1 because I got Scotty Scheffler at 1 for the exact same reasons, Xander Schauffele at 2 for the exact same reasons, Rory McIlroy at 3 for the exact same reason, and then Ludwig Aubert. He hasn't been playing well. He missed the cut at the PGA, but kind of for like what you said, everything else outside of that has been all signs point to yes. Colin Morikawa is coming in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Colin Morikawa is number 5 for me. His play has absolutely picked up a handful of top 10s, including I think a runner-up in there somewhere. Speaking of runner-up, Victor Perez snuck in a runner-up finish recently. So that's why he's at number 6. Number 7, Billy Horschel, recent victor back in 2022, and he also won a kind of second-tier event earlier this year, so look out for him. And then Viktor Hovland and Patrick Cantlay rounded out. Again, Victor because he won last year, so you never know, lightning in a bottle kind of deal. And then Patrick Cantlay's won twice here, so he's obviously a horse for this course.
So 2 things here. I like the Victor Perez play. Victor Perez ranks 30th in my model, but when I look at his actual numbers, like that's someone that I would do the eye test on, and especially at 6,800.
Especially 6,800, yeah. If you're doing DK, give him a look.
I love Victor Perez at 6,800 on DK if you're playing DK for sure. That's a fantastic pick. You brought up Patrick Cantlay though, and this is something that I kind of wanted to get to last week, but then we just ran out of time. Is this idea that I think golf in any sport than any other sport is a sport where names carry you when it comes to betting a lot further than your performance necessarily dictates. Let's be honest, Patrick Cantlay has not been impressive for about 2 years now. As far as winning, as far as top tens, like whatever metric you want to use. But when he enters a tournament, he's typically in the top 10% of best odds to win because I think the name. But there's other guys on tour who are 200, 300 to 1 to win who have won more than he has in the last 2 years because he hasn't really won.
So
How
his
do
last
you
win,
feel? How do well? So what I was gonna say is just how do you feel about the idea that like do you feel the same way that in golf names just carry so much more weight because it is a solo competition? Like obviously football, you got a team, you can give the credit for one game to a quarterback or to a running back or to a receiver, but in the end, it's a team sport. But in golf, because it's one person, it's one name, it's one achievement that tends to last longer in history.
yes, 1,000,000%. I think your chits in the bank go a little longer in golf because it's an individual sport. For example,
Mhm.
Patrick Cantlay's last victory was the BMW at the end of 2022 during the FedEx
Yes,
Cup playoffs when he had won the FedEx Cup the year before. So he was trying to go
correct.
back to back. He fell short with a top 10 at the Tour Championship. Now, after that, though, he still had, let's see here, a runner up at the Shriners, third at the Genesis in 23, fourth at the Arnold Palmer in 23. Third at the RBC Heritage, runner up. Where was he? Third at the RBC Heritage again, fourth at the Genesis, fifth at the Tour Championship, second at the St. Jude. So he hasn't. You're right. He's not winning, but I think what you're
Not winning,
highlighting is there can be I think a misconception almost of why are people still betting this guy if he's not winning?
because he's
Because
still in the mix.
yeah, like Kevin Kisner
Yeah,
says, they pay a lot of money for 20th out here, and so if you're in the top 20,
fair.
you automatically get invited to next week. First of all, and second of all, you get a pretty decent paycheck. And so, the difference between 20th place and first place in a lot of these tournaments is a handful of strokes. And so,
Mhm.
guys, that's 2-3 bad holes. It's a couple of decisions. The margin of error between winning and 20th place is pretty slim in most tournaments. We've seen some blowouts
Yeah,
that got people chirping about the quality of play. But you said it earlier too with Bobby McIntyre. That's our 8th first-time winner on the PGA Tour this year.
right.
So
This year has been so incredibly hard to predict winners.
I
It's
bring
been so hard.
I bring that up because right before the show, you texted me a screenshot, and this is what I was thinking about with Pop.
Mhm.
Is him talking about reunification of golf is kind of above my pay grade. It's like, yeah, right, dude.
That's
Nothing's above your pay grade. You're being a little gracious
that
there.
was
His
my
point,
favorite part of this whole quote. It just 'cause it just seems silly to me.
it's the nicest way of saying, "Don't fucking ask me about that. I don't want to talk about it."
Exactly.
Uh, But his point's valid that maybe we're not going to see reunification, and instead, the USGA guys out there saying, "Listen, mate, we're looking at whether or not we should offer some exemptions to live golfers specifically." He's like, they've proven that there's a handful of good guys over there. However, you look at the PGA Tour, is it because all those guys left for live that we're getting all these first time winners? Or is the talent pool
Mm,
just that much deeper and these kids are that much better? Look at your boy Miles Russell, 15 years old. He's going to be
exactly.
playing the Rocket City Classic in a few weeks. We got Jackson Coyven this week, who is a freshman at Auburn. He just finished his freshman year. He's the Haskins Award winner. That's the Heisman for
Mhm.
golf for football fans. He's in the field on a sponsor exemption this week. And then obviously it's the third time I've mentioned him, but Jordan Spieth is kind of the latest, Nick Dunlap. Nick Dunlap's in the field this week. He
I
won
know,
as an
yeah.
amateur. So it's all over the place. I think Jack's point was give me my tournament back in the week that I want it. Don't ask me
Yeah,
about stupid drama. And if Liv wants to do its thing, then it can do its thing. That was his way of saying the PGA Tour doesn't need this reunification. People can just kind of coexist if they want to, but he's like, it is nice when
sure.
everybody plays together. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I
he
don't
would prefer it. And I think that's how most golf fans feel.
could not
I
care
think we
less.
would prefer it. Yeah, we like if they reunify or not, we couldn't care less. But yes, I agree with Jack that if there's more tournaments where Brooks and DJ and Phil and all these other guys are in it, then I'm not going to complain about it. Like
Brooks
that,
and
I
Bryson.
think that's great.
Brooks and Bryson's
Maybe it's just Phil's. Yeah, you're right. Phil was a bit of a stretch there. I don't disagree with you. That was my
well, I
effort.
mean, as far as the argument
Brooks and
of getting the
Bryson,
best, and I'm not arguing against you, I'm arguing against the assholes out there who think that everybody should be coming back. But Brooks and
Yeah.
Bryson's are the only people who are performing now. Lee Westwood, after his
This is
Peter
true.
Finch thing,
Oh my god, what a fucking whiny
what a
baby
tool.
Lee
Just
Westwood was.
what a
Good god.
tool. And then
I
trying to be
had
like, the
respect for
future,
Lee Westwood before, but good god, shut up.
the future, the future of golf is really a team sport. It's going to be a team game. I mean, outside
No,
of the
it's
majors,
not. It's
no, it's
never been
not.
a team fucking game. That's why there's only every 2 years is a Ryder
Right.
Cup. Every 2 years is a President's Cup. It's because
We-
it's not natural for golf.
It's those guys, they took the bag, they walked away, and it's sunsetting and it's not working out. Doesn't mean that
Right.
live golf's going to go away. I think live golf will continue to
Correct.
exist because, like we've talked about, there's different markets that want it, and they're not going to get this, this type of entertainment or this caliber of golf. But you're not going to get you're not going to get the kids coming out, the PGA Tour guy, Michael Thornbornson, whatever. You don't see these
Yes,
guys going, nah, fuck the PGA Tour. I want to see what live has to offer. You don't see
Yeah,
the
no.
top tier talent going there. You see the people who have been to the mountaintop or the people who are likely not going to get there anytime soon. So,
But they still have a dream that maybe they should.
Lee Westwood. God, that was just a dumb interview.
I know, right? What a whiny bitch.
That's a great way to end the show. Fuck Lee Westwood. Let's land this plane.
Fuck Lee Westwood. Yes. Landing the plane is perfect. Look, every Tuesday night we're here on That Sports Podcast Network. And hey, so this is going to be a little shameless plug here. Like I said a little bit earlier, football season is upon us. I know it may seem early for most of you fans out there, but if you are a fantasy football player, it is fantasy football season time starting now, especially you dynasty leagues out there. Your trades are starting to get picked up. But the TSS Fantasy Show kicks off next Friday night at 9:00. The summer series, the summer tour kicks off. So we're gonna break down every single team and every single division on a separate night to really give you a full encapsulated rundown of what's going on from a fantasy standpoint for each and every team in the NFL across a few weeks. So check out TSS Fantasy here on That Sports Podcast. And as always, every Tuesday night here at 8:00, we're here, me and Bud, Divots and Pivots, 8:00. We love you guys. Bud's gonna be at the US Open next week. Check out his content on Instagram at This Bud's For You, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. I know he's still getting into TikTok, but we'll get him there. And we're gonna have a lot for you next week. Check us out.
TikTok.
And as always, guys, we love you and stay classy. We swear a new intro is coming.